Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at the town of LYME Regis, right on the western edge of Dorset. It's about 25 miles west of Dorchester and 25 miles east of Exeter, and it's sometimes dubbed the Pearl of Dorset. And we're going to be doing a roughly 5.5 mile circular walk. It'll be in two parts. We'll initially start off by wandering through LYME Regis itself, and then we'll be heading northwest following the River Lim to UPLYME, and then coming back under the impressive viaduct, then over Horseman's Hill before descending the spectacular Ware Cliffs back to LYME Regis. Now I'm filming right at the end of May. It is a glorious sunny morning. There's blue sky, hardly a cloud up there, very little wind. It should be perfect conditions for a walk, so if I can wake him up, do come along with us. Well, I've parked my car at the Holmbush car park, which is on the western edge of town. We're just about to go downhill towards the sea, which I think you can probably just see me behind there. Before we do that though, there's something I want to show you first, just near the car park. Well, this is the first building that I want to look at today. It is really quite magnificent, called Belmont. It was built before 1784. A trust bought it in 2007 and it has been restored, very much a Georgian maritime villa. It's got some carvings on it, as you can see, dolphins, Neptune, Amphitrite. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Anyway, she's a sea goddess. She was the wife of Poseidon, and there's some other sea creatures as well. And there's a magnificent observatory tower that was built in 1883. And the other interesting thing about this house is the author John Fowles lived here from 1968 until he died in 2005. He wrote The French Lieutenant's Woman that was published in 1969. Now we've just come down Broad Street, and the building in front of me here is the Three Cups Hotel. As you can see, it's derelict. And Jane Austen stayed at Hiscock's boarding house on the same site in 1804. Anyway, Three Cups Hotel closed in 1990. And General Eisenhower delivered a very important briefing to senior officers in the first floor lounge prior to D-Day. It'd be lovely if they managed to restore it, won't it? Well, that's certainly a cannon and a half, isn't it? Let's have a little look out to sea. Now I'm conscious that I'm pointing this directly at the sun, but the sea looks lovely and calm today. Very far distance, I can just about make out Golden Cap. Let's continue with our exploration. Now I hope you can see this because it is a little bit dark through there. There's a bridge going over, I'm guessing this must be the River Lim. But apparently this is the third oldest bridge in Dorset, and parts date to the 14th century. One arch survives in a nearby cellar to the east, and that dates to, well, 1200, 1240, but only a single arch is now visible now. Well, you never know who you're going to meet on these walks. The more videos that I've done on the channel, obviously from time to time I get recognised, but bear in mind this is about as far west as I've done so far in the series. I was quite surprised that we got recognised today. A lovely couple called John and Sandy, who are over from New England in the United States, over for a month here. And they recognised, I think they recognised Logan first and then myself. And yeah, they've been following a lot of the channels and going to some of the places that we've filmed. So if you're watching John and Sandy, it was lovely to have met you. And the building here on the right, that's the Guildhall or Town Hall that stood here since 1604. It was remodelled in 1887. We're now going to do a little wander along the beach towards the Cobb. As far as dogs on the beach, well, on the town beach, they can only be here between October and April on a lead. On the rest of the year they're not allowed at all, but on the East Cliff Beach, Church Cliff Beach and Monmouth Beach, I believe they are allowed all year off lead. But beautiful in the sunshine this morning, with the waves gently lashing against the, it's quite a shingly beach, as you can see. Now I should point out that I'm filming the section in the town very early in the morning, so it might look quite quiet now, but it is quite a tourist attraction, and I'm guessing it gets pretty busy later on. As far as the town's concerned, it was a major port in the 13th century, and a royal charter was granted by King Edward I in 1284 when Regis was added to the town's name. The charter was confirmed by Queen Elizabeth I in 1591. Well folks, just behind me here is a useful map showing the Jurassic Coast. So let me show you where we've done our walks in the series so far. So we've done one at Wareham, Corfe Castle, Kimmeridge, Worth-Matravers, Swanage, Durlston Head, Studland, Old Harry Rocks. Moving across here, we've done one at Moreton, Ringstead, Portland. We're going to do one at the Fleet. We've done one at Abbotsbury. We've done one at West Bay. We're going to do one at Golden Cap. And this is the one today at LYME Regis. We've been about. I'll just show you where we've come along the seafront there, and this is looking to the north, and just panning around. Looks like a little lifeboat station here with what does that say? A B-class inshore lifeboat. We're now going to take a walk along a fascinating structure called the Cobb. It's on the sort of western side of the bay here. Well, it was first built in the 13th century as a wooden breakwater to provide shelter for vessels anchored in an otherwise exposed Lyme Bay. It's been added to over the years, but had extensive damage in a storm in 1817. It was virtually rebuilt in the 1820s and extended in 1842 with the addition of a pier. The origin of the name is unsure, but there are records of an ancient feast called the Cobb Ale Feast. Anyway, it's 870 feet long. The eastern section ends with Victoria Pier, where Princess Victoria landed with her mother in 1833. Now the Cobb is the place where Louisa Musgrove fell from the steps known as Granny's Teeth in Jane Austen's 1817 novel Persuasion. And the opening scene involving Jeremy Irons and Meryl Streep in the 1981 film The French Lieutenant's Women was filmed here on the Cobb. Well, this unusual feature here on the side of the Cobb is called the Gin Shop. Possibly it was an ammunition store holding cannonballs and gunpowder used to defend the Cobb. Gin is actually a three-legged crane or winch which would have been set above the stone that was used for the placement of guns. I'm hoping that it's going to be not too windy on the audio here. But looking back along the Cobb, there used to be a customs house behind the Cobb, and up until the middle of the 19th century, major local products such as blue lias, which is a sort of, well, it's used to make underwater cement, and textiles were exported through the harbour. Shipbuilding was very big here between 1780 and 1850. Something like over 100 ships were launched in that period. Indeed, in 1780, the port was larger than the port of Liverpool. Well, just on the eastern side of the Cobb is the Marine Aquarium, which was opened in the 1950s. Apparently you can stroke a lobster or hold a starfish there, if you so wish. Well, I'm just on the western side of the Cobb, and this is Monmouth Beach, where the Duke of Monmouth indeed landed here on the 11th of June 1685 in an attempt to wrestle the crown from James II. He ended up in a ditch near Ringwood in Hampshire after losing the Battle of Sedgemoor on the 5th of July 1685, and he was beheaded soon after. And I was reading that 12 LYME REGIS men who had supported Monmouth were hanged here on this very beach. Anyway, dogs are allowed on this bit, so let's go for a little wander. Now, I don't think it's really dog dip weather today, but we'll see. He's thinking about it? No, I don't blame you. I'm not going to join you. Well, we thoroughly enjoyed our little exploration of the Cobb and the harbour. So, we're leaving that now, although I expect we'll end up there right at the end for some fish and chips. So we're making our way slightly uphill through, I think it's called the Jane Austen Garden. There's a few more things that we need to have a look at in LYME REGIS before we head out into the countryside. Well, continue to make our way uphill through these quite magnificent gardens, some beautiful planting. And there's a whole load of really interesting sculptures to admire. This one behind me here apparently is called the Juggler. Well, this is an interesting one. Looks like a lady carrying her Whippet. There is actually a plaque in front of it. It's called Time. The woman will rust away over a span of time, but the creature on her head, which represents deep time, will not. Well, just on the eastern edge of the town is the church of St Michael the Archangel. Originally there was a Saxon church on the site. It dates from 1120. It was a tripartite structure with an axial tower. The north transept was added in 1200 and the south transept later, and the two aisles were added in the 13th century. Now, in the late 15th century, early 16th century, a new church was built to the east of the tower, and the old nave was converted into a porch. So now there is a chancel, nave, north and south chapel, north and south aisles, and the tower. The present nave was completed in 1506, and it consists of 6 bays, 2 of which form the chancel, and the whole church was restored in 1834 and 1885. So basically, when the church was originally built, it was a lot further away from the sea than it is now. Wow, there are some quite stunning views just to the side of the church. looking out to sea, and on a glorious day like today the sea looks so blue. And then we've got the wonderful Jurassic Coast, and the far distance there's a Golden Cap, which is one of Dorset's highest cliffs at, I think it's 617 foot, something like that. Now I need to tell you the story of Mary Anning, who's famous in the town. Between 1811 and 1847, Mary was a fossil collector, and she used to find dinosaur fossils in cliffs to the east of LYME Regis. She was only 12 years old when, along with her brother, she correctly identified part of a Ichthyosaurus. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Basically, it was a sort of massive marine lizard that lived 200 million years ago. Anyway, Mary is buried here in the churchyard, and there's a stained glass window as a memorial. I think the Geological Society paid for the window in 1850. And there indeed is the grave of Mary Anning. And tradition has it that people put a fossil or pebble on her grave, and yeah, sure enough, I can just about see a few little pebbles, and looks like a little ammonite down there as well. Let's have a little look inside. So I've just come through the front door. Fingers crossed the light's going to be all right. If not, I'll put some photos. So it's the porch, but this is where the old nave used to be. And coming into the main church, there's a terrific font there. Isn't that something special? Wow. Now, as I said, it's quite a sunny day outside, so let's see how the camera copes. But this is a quite magnificent church. I mean, just look at the panelling above. Quite stunning. Just making our way forward. It's the pulpit to the left, and coming towards the altar. Stained glass windows here. They really are splendid. Beautiful. And just panning over to the south. Again, terrific windows. But gosh, look back here. Look at the organ. It's huge. And the gallery above. And then just making my way back towards that font, and just looking for that Mary Anning window. Yes, here it is. There we go. And her grave is just on the other side of that window. What a fantastic church. Now we're going to start making our way out of the town to start our countryside walk, basically part 2 of the video. So I've just come down, I think it's called Monmouth Street, and well, the house behind me here is actually called Monmouth House, where indeed the Duke of Monmouth stayed in 1685. And just panning round, this is George Square. There was a pub called the George Inn, which was the main pub in town until it was destroyed in a fire in 1844, and it was actually located just to the south of where I am now in George Square. That's all the area around here is now a war memorial garden, and very pretty it is too. Now for the next part of the walk we'll be following the River Lim, and we'll be seeing that shortly. But just in front of me here is the old town mill, and it still works. There was a mill here in 1340, but certainly the Domesday Book records a mill here before then. And basically water is diverted from the river 200 yards upstream and then down this little mill stream here. We're now heading northwards. Now I'm presuming it must be the River Lim on this side and a little sort of channel on the right. Certainly it's quite a deep drop down there, a good 12 foot. The river is only 3 miles long, 3.5 miles or so. It rises from multiple springs north of UPLYME in East Devon at Raymond's Hill. And it used to have 3 mills on it in the 12th century, but now just the town mill which we've seen. A handy little map of the River Lim path. So hopefully you can see this, it's in the shade. So obviously there's LYME REGIS, so we're following up the path here. We're there, so we're basically just going to follow this path that goes along the river and then head along here, and our next destination is UPLYME. But from here, I say, it really is quite an enchanting little babbling stream. Wow, this is a little bit better, more opportunity for a dip, and it's fresh water as well, just to cool down. Good boy. Oh. You know, I really am beginning to get quite fond of this this river. So continuing to head northwards, and just ahead another one of the old mills that has now been converted. And there we go, this was the higher mill, and as you can see it's now been converted into flats, and we will continue our wander. As well as the sound of the river and the birds twittering away, there's some lovely wild flowers on the side of the bank as well. Well, we really are heading out into the countryside now. Looks like we're on the Liberty Trail, the Wessex Ridgeway. That's the long distance path. We've got 136 miles from Marlborough in Wiltshire to LYME REGIS, opened in 1994, and we're on the East Devon Way. So, in fact, that reminds me, we will be crossing over from Dorset into to Devon very shortly. Oh wow, isn't that quite delightful? The thatch on top, the old wooden water wheel, looking quite stunning in the sunshine. Well, another little information board. We have made it to here, so we're going to now go through a glen, UPLYME, have a little look at the church, and then continue through and then start heading south. But this does mean we're now in Devon. So we've got a really delightful little sort of shady wooded area to make our way through. And I get this fantastic smell of garlic coming through. It really is quite an overpowering smell. You hear the birds twittering away as well. I'm so glad we've got this shade now, because it's turning out to be quite a warm day. Thankfully we've got plenty of water, both for myself and Logan. Well, we've made it to UPLYME in Devon. I tell you, the little path that we followed up from LYME REGIS, it really was quite idyllic. So many thatched cottages along the way. Anyway, behind me here is the church. Well, the village of UpLYME itself was once owned by Glastonbury Abbey. And this is the church of St Peter and St Paul, thought to have been founded in the 9th century, but the 14th century tower is the oldest part of the present structure. It was all restored in 1876. It consists of a nave, chancel, north aisle, south doorway with an 18th century door and a 19th century porch. There's a north vestry and west tower. And there's a rather magnificent yew tree in front of it, which folk reckons is at least 1,000 years old. Okay, well, in we go. We'll see how we do with the lights. There are some lights on here. So I've got this very interesting sort of gallery in front of me. And then turning to the left, there's the bell tower with the sallies. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bells. Now the font is over there. I'll probably have to take a photo of that because that's very, very, very dark. There's some quite exquisite panels up in the ceiling. And what's quite interesting, I don't know if you can tell, where the chancel starts from the nave, it's slightly out of sync. And then just coming through towards the altar. Oh, there's a magnificent stained glass window at the very end. Isn't that terrific? What a beautiful church. Well, it really was a pretty little village. It's a shame we haven't got more time to explore. Anyway, we're just passing by the rather cute little UpLYME and LYME Regis Cricket Club. The pavilion there. And we're now going to start heading along a footpath that takes us through a little meadow. Well, folks, simply had to have another pit stop just to look back at my last view of UpLYME. And the football pitch down there and the cricket pitch and the pretty cottages and houses and the delightful church sitting halfway up the hill. Very much a quintessential English countryside village. Well, how about this for an impressive bit of architecture? It's the Cannington Viaduct. It's 203 yards long, 10 arches of 52-foot span, 92 foot high, and constructed of mass concrete. Well, the third arch from the west has actually been reinforced with brick due to infill. But there's no public access along the top. Basically, there was a railway line, a branch line from Axminster to LYME Regis. It was only 6 miles long. It opened in 1903 and then closed in 1965. And the actual station at LYME Regis, when it was dismantled, it was re-erected at Orlesford Station in Hampshire on the Watercress line. Of course, we've seen that on a video that we did there last year. Well, we're continuing to head south, but just after the viaduct, we're actually going to slightly double back, heading sort of northeast, head up hills, just so that we can then come down a ridge. But I'm glad we have made the little detour, because from this side you get an even better view of the viaduct. It really is an impressive bit of engineering. We've just made it to the top of Horseman's Hill and come up a very pretty but steep footpath. Although it was lovely and shaded from the sun, it's getting quite warm now. So we're now very much on the homeward leg, heading back to join an old friend of ours, the Southwest Coast Path. We're now back on the Southwest Coast Path. As I said earlier, an old friend of ours. We've come across it a few times in previous walks. Of course, the whole route is 630 miles from Poole all the way around to Minehead. So we're now heading on along Ware Cliffs, and at some stage we cross the border. So we're back in Dorset. Well, folks, another breathtaking view. Looking across the bay, the Jurassic Coast, in the very far distance, that's West Bay and the West Bay Cliff, and wow, I can just about make out the Isle of Portland. I don't think I'll try and take a zoom photo, it's just too hazy. Well, I've now made it back to LYME Regis, and there's the Cobb in front of us. What a beautiful sight. Is there anything more English on a sunny early summer's afternoon than a game of bowls? Such a relaxing sport to watch and play, I should imagine. Well, folks, we've made it back to the Cobb at LYME Regis for our fish and chips and Coke. We had a super walk today. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. So until we meet again, thanks for watching and cheerio. Right, sir, you fancy a chip? I thought he might.